Warning, this episode contains graphic content that may be disturbing for some of our listeners.
Violence in any shape or form against anyone is absolutely not supposed to happen. That's not the way we accomplish things. That we settle our differences in that, and to know that we have people who are so upset by what somebody says in the political spectrum that they're willing to try to assassinate that person is a very scary thing.
Well, everyone can agree that violence has no place in our American political system. However, it has been a part of that system for a very long time. You may be surprised to know that Andrew Jackson was the victim of an assassination attempt in 1835. It goes back that far. Several presidents, we know 4 have been assassinated while they were in office. Several others have had assassination attempts made on them. Candidates, former presidents, president-elects, many instances of times when someone has tried to assassinate someone who was either running for or serving or had served in the highest office in the land. Welcome to Off the Record, an FBI agent's perspective. I'm Clark Donley, along with retired FBI Special Agent Harry Trombitas and my co-host Jessie Hemmelgarn. And we're going to talk this morning a little bit about assassinations, attempts on presidents. Of course, everybody knows the Secret Service is in charge of security for presidents and other dignitaries. But if an attempt is made, that's when the FBI steps in, Harry. And it is the FBI's job to investigate attempts on the lives of elected officials, heads of state, presidents and president-elects and former presidents as well.
Yeah, that's right, Clark. Again, the FBI is mandated to conduct these investigations and will do so, but working with our partners. It's never a one-man team. We will continue to work with the Secret Service and the other local and state law enforcement agencies that were assigned to that particular detail if we should happen to have an assassination attempt. So it's the FBI heads the investigation, but we continue to involve the other agencies as well. And so it's the kind of thing that recently we've had 2 attempts on former President Trump's life. As you mentioned, Clark, it has been a part of our history that we've had individuals who, for one reason or another, either kill or attempt to kill our leaders. And it's a very frightening thing. It's very unfortunate. First of all, violence in any shape or form against anyone is absolutely not supposed to happen. That's not the way we accomplish things. That we settle our differences in that, and to know that we have people who are so upset by what somebody says in the political spectrum that they're willing to try to assassinate that person is a very scary thing. And these last 2 attempts, again, the first attempt in Pennsylvania was one that almost was successful. And I know that the Secret Service tries very hard. I've worked with them over the years to try to protect, presidents, president-elects, candidates, foreign dignitaries the best that they can. But sometimes it's almost impossible to 100% guarantee that something can happen. And what we try to do is to minimize those chances. And we do that by just trying to look at every possible angle, every possible location where maybe somebody could gain access to our dignitary, and we try to eliminate those locations. And unfortunately, the one in Pennsylvania and the most recent one that we had in Florida, these are outside venues. It is incredibly difficult to 100% cover these locations. You think you've found every location where somebody could try to take advantage, maybe even take a shot at our dignitary, and you end up missing one, or there's one that you weren't aware of even existed. So it's very difficult to 100% guarantee that something bad isn't going to happen. You just try to minimize the chances for that to happen. And it's much easier in an indoor setting, like in an arena. If someone's giving a speech, you can control the people who are coming in and out. And you don't have to worry about, so much, farther out, like you do when you have an outdoor venue where you got to go hundreds and hundreds of yards away to try to make sure that somebody doesn't have a line of sight on a candidate or whatever the situation is. Indoor ones are much easier to work, but that still doesn't mean that there's not going to be something that happens on the inside as well. Somebody could have snuck something in ahead of time. It was missed during the search of the premises. It just a bunch of things can go wrong. So it's a very difficult task for law enforcement, for Secret Service to have to try to work a protection detail, but they're very good at it. And I've worked with them in the past. They do a very thorough job, but it's never 100% foolproof that there's not going to be something that happens. And unfortunately, I think that's what occurred here. The first case, the guy actually got some shots off, wounding the former President Trump. In the second case, Secret Service was able to spot the individual before he was able to fire any shots in that. So, it's a very difficult assignment, but one I know that the Secret Service and the other agencies that are helping them out take very seriously. Unfortunately, when something does happen, the FBI comes in and takes over the investigation. And what we're trying to really determine is, why this guy, whoever the offender was, why they got on this pathway to violence. What occurred with them that made it so important that they tried to take steps to take somebody else's life. We want to find out everything that we can about them, see their social posts, interview their friends and relatives to see if there were any comments or anything made. We're trying to put a package together about this individual so that we can understand why they did what they did. And it takes time in order for us to do that. And the second thing we're really trying to do is to determine if there's anybody else that may be connected to this individual that may want to, okay, he missed or he wasn't able to do the job. Now it's my responsibility to go out there and try to take care of this matter. We're trying again to take preventative action if we can, and because we certainly don't want any of our candidates to be harmed, and we ask and I ask everybody to take a deep breath. Our country is so polarized right now. We're like the old song, Clark, you might remember it. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. And and that's the way it is today. It's like, this side thinks the other side is absolutely, batshit crazy and, are absolutely wrong. And then the other side thinks the same about the other. And people get very, very hot in discussions and that about uh, political opinions and that nowadays. And it's very sad that we can't have a calm uh, and open discussion about our views without getting personally offended and wanting to attack the other side. And it's at a fever pitch in our country, and it's scary. It's I know that there are other people like-minded, as this most recent guy, Ralph, is very like-minded individuals who would could be on this pathway to violence, where they believe there's been a terrible grievance committed, that this person is ruining the country or will ruin the country. Well, I've got to take personal steps. No one else has been able to stop them. And they go out and they purchase a weapon, they purchase ammo, they start doing some reconnaissance to see where this candidate's going to be next, and see and actually go to the location and take a look and see if there's any vulnerabilities that they might be able to take advantage of. And I mean, they use drones, they use all kinds of things to try to come up with the best advantage point to maybe take a shot at somebody. And they're dedicated when they get to this point where they're purchasing weapons and actually doing surveillance and getting ready to stage, and commit the act. It's a very frightening thing. And what we ask the public to do is, if you happen to become aware of somebody, either you've seen a posting on some kind of social network, uh, or you've heard somebody, one of your friends or family members, talk about how upset they are, and that somebody ought to do something about it, and then you become aware that recently purchased a weapon, or they have access to weapons, and it sounds like they're serious about trying to take matters into their own hands. We want every citizen to be able to step up, and if you see or hear something, say something to us. Let us know about it so that we can take steps to hopefully intervene and prevent something bad from happening. If you tell us about somebody, and we investigate and it turns out not, the person was just blowing steam. It didn't really intend to carry carry on with, his thought, then that's no harm, no foul. But you may have been able to prevent an assassination by stepping up and saying something to law enforcement.
For those folks who think that our contemporary times are the worst that have ever been, that there was a disturbing number of assassinations and assassination attempts during the late 19th century, not just here in the U.S., but around the world, for different reasons than what we have today. There was a political movement afoot, actually, to destabilize forms of government. And so there have been, at times in our history, rashes of assassination attempts. And if you look at the history, barely a decade goes by in the last 100 years or 150 years where a president, a former president, candidate, or president-elect has not faced some kind of assassination attempt. Many of them unsuccessful, most by firearm, some by things like bombs. And so it's very difficult to categorize these assassination attempts into one or two simple categories. Some are with long-range rifles. Some are done with handguns, close up. Like you said, Harry, some at a distance. But sometimes right there in the room with the victim. What does the FBI have in its among its resources to help learn from each of these incidents and then pass that knowledge along to the Secret Service or all of the law enforcement community to try and be just that much more prepared for the next time and perhaps prevent it even before it reaches the stage where a shot is fired, as we saw in one of the earlier incidents during the presidential campaign.
Yeah, the FBI really does its best to conduct research on these different incidents that we have, mass shootings and spree shootings, assassination attempts, to try to look at all angles in that, and then use that information that we're able to come up with, as you indicated, Clark, to learn from it and to teach others what to look for and how maybe this particular case. This was prevented by doing this, or we were able to find out about this particular person because they were on this particular website, social website, talking about it. So maybe we need to keep an eye on those things. So it's all about learning from each of the incidents and taking that knowledge that we learn and trying to educate law enforcement from around the country and actually from around the world, because certainly assassination attempts happen outside the United States as well, and really try to get people thinking, outside the box, if you will, on how maybe we need to act and what steps we need to do to prevent these things from occurring. And so unfortunately, it doesn't do anything to help out the event that just happened. And unfortunately, it sounds like we did get tipped off, at least in the Pennsylvania case. We did get tipped off that the subject, the young man that ended up losing his life, when he was trying to assassinate former President Trump, had indicated that he intended to act out, and we he was posting things on a website, and he had made some comments, and that was brought to the FBI's attention, which is exactly the right thing to do. That information was relayed to the local sheriff's office, and they went out and they conducted an interview of not only the young man, but of his father as well. And it sounded like everything that could have been done by those investigators was done, but mental health issues, and we can't just lock everybody up. If somebody says Jessica's going to do something bad and we go out and we try to interview her, and she's like, there's no indications that she has access to weapons, or she's on this pathway to violence. We can't just lock her up indefinitely. We have to have probable cause to do that.
I want to ask a little bit for just the average citizen, whether you're working with children, whether you're around people a lot, or you're just an average citizen, what are some signs that we can look for that someone might be going down a path towards violence? Do they exhibit some symptoms earlier, prior to buying a gun or maybe posting on some websites? Are there some other things we can look for?
Well, there are some things, and oftentimes it starts with the young people, kids, feeling like they're kind of not fitting in. They don't have a lot of friends, or they're made fun of, they're bullied, and this can cause somebody to pull away from other relationships and that, and start to just shelter in place, basically, and then they develop an anger over what's going on, and they feel like nobody's on their side, and they're getting grief from their parents, they're getting grief from their friends. It's you can see that the kid's kind of depressed, and oftentimes they'll act out either verbally, or they might doodle on a notebook paper or something and show little pictures of, like firearms, and shooting at a somebody, a stick figure or something like that. So there could be those kinds of indications that this person is at least thinking about causing harm to someone. And then certainly the collection of a weapon somehow. So if you have weapons at home, you need to keep those locked up. You need to be constantly communicating with your child to make sure they understand they're not to touch those weapons, that they are not allowed to have access to those, and pay attention to what your child is visiting as far as the social websites, what they're saying. You're the parent. You should do everything you can to know everything about what your child is doing. And if you see your child is withdrawn and now they're doing little sketches about maybe shooting people, and you find out that maybe they're in the process of trying to secure a weapon, those are the kind of signs that you want to look for, that should give you a heads up that you need to step in and maybe get some counseling going, or take further action in that. And also it comes down to talking with your teachers and that at school, the child's teachers, and find out, at home, you're only getting part of the picture. You're seeing what's going on at home, but you have no idea what's going on at school. So having good communication with your teachers and that, I think, or with the child's teachers are important, so that you get the other picture of what's happening in that. And if they're saying that they're withdrawn in school, they don't want to come to class, they're trying to skip school. Those are all things that could be warning signs that your child might be on this pathway, especially if they're making comments and things to classmates about wanting to hurt somebody or whatever. So, you need to try to get the total picture.
Same for adults, correct? So if we're
Absolutely.
interacting with adults, the withdrawal, the anger, the accumulation of
Absolutely.
weapons
Yeah,
are
just
the same.
The comments, Jessica, that people make. I mean, you can tell when your friends are just blowing off steam a little bit, like, that hell with that guy, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it's now like, did you hear about this? And somebody ought to do something about this. And nobody's doing anything. I'm thinking about doing something. And they actually, we call it leakage. And people, both adults and children, will oftentimes either say something verbally or through writing, maybe in a journal or something, that they're intending to act out, and you have to stay on top of that and pay attention to those kinds of comments, and take them seriously. And sometimes we especially if it's a friend or something that you think they're just blowing off steam, they're really not serious about it, but it's bothering you. If somebody's bothering you with what they say, or some of the actions that they're taking, you need to let somebody know about it. And like I said, if that person's checked out and there's no issues or anything that we can see, no harm, no foul. But continue to monitor that person and see if there continues to be an escalation, and then say something again at that point. Those are the kind of signs that you can look for to potentially head off a situation like what we've had recently. You can submit, I think it's tips.fbi.gov, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to verify that, but certainly your local law enforcement agency is another way for you to head off these issues, or at least bring them to the attention of law enforcement. But it's important that you take the steps to talk, to tell somebody, because again, we may have another assassination attempt, and we always hear about, I thought he was blowing off steam, or he wasn't really going to do anything, and somebody knew about it, but they didn't bother to say anything ahead of time. So, I encourage everybody, if you encounter somebody that seems to be on this pathway to violence, step up and say something.
And remember, violence has no place in the political discourse of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Retired FBI agent Harry Trombitas, good advice and interesting insight. Jessie Hemmelgarn, thank you very much. For folks who want to hear other episodes of this podcast, where we talk to Harry about cases that he's investigated, and also get a little bit of insight into safety and law enforcement, Jessie, where can we go?
We are available on YouTube, all your favorite podcast streaming platforms, as well as social media.
And I'm Clark Donley, and we'll see you next time.
Off the Record, an FBI agent's perspective, is created and hosted by Clark Donley, Harry Trombitas, and Jessie Hemmelgarn. Produced by Jessie Hemmelgarn. Stories in this podcast are inspired by Harry Trombitas' autobiography, Dark Places, about his time in the FBI. Music is called Cruise in the Back and is available on Storyblocks. You can find this podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and on our website.